It's the Darius Show, y'all already know. Drop your boot into the flow, come give me some more. It's the Darius Show.
Ping Pong the Animation is an 11-episode anime that was released in 2014. The series is most known for its thin and often shaky line work and dynamic perspective shots that constantly contort the player's and audience point of view. The series itself follows two lifelong friends, Smile and Pico, and their individual journeys navigating the sport of table tennis. The series also follows the perspective of a few other young men who have dedicated their life to the sport, but each have their own unique relationship with it. Ping Pong the Animation is a shockingly dense, emotionally rich story that is filled to the brim with metaphors, symbolism, visual storytelling, and deep psychological analysis into the mind of young athletes. While unassuming on paper, Ping Pong the Animation offers a wide range of messages and theming. The art style, approach to visual storytelling, dialogue, and even its unique tone all come together to produce what is, for my money, the most captivating and emotionally rewarding sports anime that I've ever seen. At first glance, this series is jarring to say the least. It immediately opens to a dialogue surrounding our main characters and wastes no time showing off the unique look and vibes of the series. Shaky lines, scaled back art direction, and other aspects give the impression that the animation is lacking or even unfinished. I've heard people go as far as to describe the series as being ugly and hard to look at. Soon, it becomes crystal clear that this is an intentional choice. The underwhelming approach to its animation not only lends the series a sense of realism and groundedness, but also lowers the guard of the viewer and puts an emphasis on the emotion of the story that's being told, not the animation. That being said, make no mistake, I am a massive fan of the animation of this anime. While I can acknowledge what would make someone describe this anime as ugly, my personal feelings on the matter are entirely different. I think that this series' tone is more artistic, and the expression is something that I've seen very seldom in other animated projects. I love how this series looks, and it's one that never fails to draw me in. For an anime that came out in 2014, Ping Pong proves that you don't need high, massive budgets or flashy animation. You can reach the same highs that something like Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 can reach, with bare bones animation budget, as long as the artistic sense of direction is strong enough. And in the case of Ping Pong the Animation, it's plenty strong. Almost every shot and camera angle are set up to deliver a unique point of view, and it's constantly changing to match the tone of the scene or maybe a particular character's perspective at that given moment. The general composition for most scenes have a unique and artful charm to them, even though the subjects being depicted are borderline stick figures at times. For now, that's enough about the visual tone of the series. What is this all about? As stated before, Smile and Peiko are long-term friends who bond over their shared interests in table tennis from a young age. At the start of our story, the boys are first years in high school, and they are widely acknowledged to be brimming with untapped potential. Smile is an emotionally detached kid who seems to build walls up around him so that he's never challenged emotionally. He carries this attitude that if he can stay put and stay out of everyone's way and essentially hide in plain sight, he can maintain his comfort zone. He doesn't want to bother anyone, and in return, he doesn't want anyone to bother him. Throughout the series, we get additional context into Smile's character in that his mother passed away when he was a young boy, and now he currently lives with just his father, likely adding to the shelled-up persona that Smile has developed into his teenage years. Peiko is an energetic goofball who doesn't take anything seriously. At the start of our story, Peiko is considered to be the best around. He can beat anyone in his way, and it comes naturally. He doesn't seem to particularly work hard into the sport that he loves, and he even skips meetings and practices. However, he still continues to outperform his peers with this little investment. In so many ways, Peiko is everything that Smile is not, and vice versa. They are two sides of the same coin and represent opposite outlooks on life. For Peiko, nothing is ever all that serious, winning or losing. He seems to have an abundance of joy at his disposal. However, with no legitimate challengers, he's growing passive. Smile treats ping pong like a day job. He clocks in, does his thing, and clocks out. Smile's journey throughout these 11 episodes is learning to find joy in playing these games. Not just checking off the box, not just doing something to pass time, but to actually find something that's worth being passionate about. Both of these boys are considered to be naturally talented and gifted when it comes to table tennis. And our series follows them as they navigate their potential ping pong careers, while trying to find what motivates them as individuals and ultimately answer the question, why do you play ping pong? The robot and the hero. Throughout the entire run of this story, they are constantly making references and flashing to these visual metaphors known as the robot and the hero. These are meant to represent our characters and provide us a little bit more emotional context as to what makes them tick. Smile is often compared to the robot and is emotionless, right? He wishes to complete the task at hand with no further discussion. He wants to be efficient and get in and get out. Smile the robot learns that he ultimately is human, and he learns that through pushing himself further than he ever has before. Peiko, the hero, has the ability to overcome seemingly insurmountable foes. By defying logic and pushing through, he motivates and lifts others up to find joy and freedom through table tennis. He's equated to being the hero of the story, and that largely comes from his ability to make it fun for those that he plays with. Both Pico and Smile are also influenced by their coaches within the series. Their individual relationships with their coaches not only highlights the importance of having positive adult figures in your life, but each offer a cautionary tale for potential outcomes for both of our protagonists. These adult characters simultaneously act as an emotional tether for our characters to be tied to in a world where they are experiencing so many emotions through their adolescence. But they also provide a firm reminder of what ping pong can do to you when it becomes your everything. Smile's relationship with his coach is one that really evolves over the run of the series, from being begrudgingly accepting his guidance to a genuine, mutual, respectful relationship, and is someone that Smile seemingly comes to count on. Smile's coach correctly identifies that Smile needs support. He needs attention, and he needs someone to point out what he is actually capable of accomplishing. We see Smile's guard drop over time throughout the series with his coach, and he actually starts to lean on him for guidance and wisdom by the time we get to the end of its run. Peiko's relationship with the old woman who runs the old ping pong shop ends up being one of the most important dynamics of the show. Once Peiko declares to her that he is willing to acknowledge his dream of competing on the world stage, she gets serious about training him, and her constant reminders of "I love you" delivers one of the core thesis statements that this series really has to offer: unconditional love. She and Peiko, by the end of this series, adopt this attitude that is quick to express love to even your fiercest competitors. This same attitude is what facilitates Peiko's ability to lift others up. This unconditional love leads to every action Peiko takes being filled with optimism, which in turn creates fun, which catches on to everyone involved. Peiko's match between Kazuma later on did a lot to drive this point home. Seeing the dragon's walls drop as he is exhilarated while losing even to his fiercest foe yet, and all the while he's experiencing joy and love. To be honest, I'm left with almost a Buddhist-like sentiment in how this series perceives the world and how you should approach it with sports. It's like the series is trying to say, yes, try your best, give it your all, but ultimately take it as the opportunity that it is, to share in the joy of what the game is at the end of the day. You know, these characters take this all so seriously. The stakes feel like life and death. But at the end of the day, this is ping pong. If there's one through-line message that remains true throughout the entire run of this series, it's that these competitors should try to remember that this is a game. The point isn't to shoulder the weight of the world and responsibility. The point isn't to kick yourself for not being as good as someone else. The point is to play. The point is to have fun. The journeys that Peiko and Smile go on are pretty clear. Peiko learns how to harness a competitive edge, and in doing so, rediscovers his spark for the game that he loves and sets out to spread that joy to others that he plays. For Smile, he learns how to open up his heart. He goes from feeling like ping pong is just a way to pass time to truly putting in maximum effort in honing his technique. By the end of the show, he accepts that he is not a robot. He is fully human and is capable of feeling and embracing all of life's emotions. Smile learns that it is in fact safe outside of his little closet. He can come out of his shell and everything will be okay. He just needed Peiko to come and burst it wide open to show him that. But that's not all that Ping Pong the animation is about. It's not just about these two characters and these core themes that they battle through. No, this series offers a true deep dive into the psyche of competition. It explores every aspect that athletes and competitors experience, and it uses its side characters and cast to drive home this thought. Kazuma the Dragon. Kazuma, while not being one of our main characters, ends up being one of our central characters that we do get to explore the world through. Kazuma is the ace and star for the Kaio Academy, the #1 ping pong club that we see in the entire series. They have the best technology, training facilities, and overall resources to produce top-tier players. He is the son of the owner of the team and is also their star for their promotions and public deals. The Kaio Academy is a business that offers equipment like tables, balls, mats, and shoes. Because of this success and status as the captain of the team, Kazuma is the representative of Kaio overall and their brand. Between his brand deals, public image, familial ties, and team expectations, Kazuma is constantly being told what he needs to do and is dutifully filling out those demands while also shouldering the responsibility of all these expectations. The only problem is that he loses himself along the way. Kazuma is fighting for his family, the team, the brand, but not for himself. With the weight of responsibility thrust upon Kazuma, and while he is still a top competitor, but his soul is slowly being diminished as he carries on. It's not until Sakuma is really able to challenge his point of view that those walls start to crack. And in his final match with Peiko, he is liberated. Peiko the hero jumps in and is able to show Kazuma how to have fun again, and in doing so, he learns how to play for himself. Kazuma represents what I believe many high-performing athletes experience. They sell their soul to be the best of the best. For many athletes, it's not enough to do what you love and do it well. It's the pressure that when you excel at something, to give it everything you possibly have to strive to become the literal best. Along the way, you can lose your spark for the activity that you once loved. Throughout the series, Kazuma is a cautionary tale of what happens in the extreme of these situations, right? When you're the top performer, when you have all these expectations thrust upon you, this is the extreme end of what can happen, and it's a soul-crushing, dim reminder, to be honest. Enter the hero motif is something that is repeated constantly throughout the series, and sure, Sakuma's the one that starts to get him to open up, but it really takes Peiko the hero to see the error of his ways. And alongside the hero, with some beautiful visual storytelling, we see that Kazuma is able to grow wings, and he, although be it brief, is able to fly right alongside of Peiko. Now let's talk about another side character who truly is put to the side, but is used for some of the most emotionally weighty moments. Sakuma the Shadow. Sakuma has truly one of the most interesting character journeys within the show. When he's introduced, we learn that he's actually been alongside Peiko and Smile since their early childhood. However, he's always been sitting in their shadow. To be honest, I found myself really identifying and relating to Sakuma. I personally have always been considering myself an athlete throughout my childhood and through my high school experience. My story was always that I could make the team, but I was always one of the worst people on the team. To compensate for this, I would put in more effort than anyone around me. I felt that I could potentially close the skill gap by outworking everyone. This sentiment, while being a fair and, aspirational motivation, often leads to a bitter envy when others excel and it seems like that it just comes naturally for them, and that no matter how much work you can put in, you can't close that gap. In the first half of the series, this is certainly the reality that Sakuma finds himself in. He has poured so much studying, blood, sweat, and tears into this game, but constantly finds himself coming up short next to the players that seem to just be naturally gifted at it. He has a constant running win-loss record for those he considers to be his rivals, and he's driven to prove to them that he is better now. Once he ultimately comes up short and is utterly defeated and humbled by Smile, he's able to finally let go. It's clear to him now how wide the gap is, how wide the gap is, and that he'll never be able to overcome it. Listen, you can look at this as him giving up, and you could look down upon him because of that. But ultimately, what comes out of this choice is a drastic transformation for Sakuma. By giving up ping pong, he finally can let go of all of his resentment that he's built up and rediscover who he is outside of the game of ping pong. He quietly goes on a journey of self-discovery and even goes out of his way to extend help to his old competitors. I was particularly moved when Sakuma goes to Peko in an effort to shake him out of his own rut. He knows that Peko has a natural gift and affinity for the game, but can't seem to find his own motivation. Their exchange not only gives Peko the motivation he needs to finally acknowledge his dreams, but it gives Sakuma his own sense of closure over his rival who has long tortured him. He starts off as an annoying, bitter, vindictive character that I can't wait to see lose, and he ends the story as this wide character who actually provides the most perspective on our other characters who are still in the competition. In his own way, Sakuma is his hero. You know, he is a hero to Peko. He is a hero to Kazuma later on. Now, let's drastically shift gears to another character that really rounds out the different types of perspectives that we see within competition. Kong, the man without a home. Kong, I have to say, is one of the more interesting characters that we get introduced to through the context of this series. He is the hotshot from China who was sent to Japan after being booted from his national team. Kong has competed on the global stage and is considered to be a top-notch player. However, his time in Japan is seen as an opportunity to prove himself, that he deserves to go back and compete on that level. When we are introduced to Kong, he's depressed. He doesn't want to be here. He thinks that he can just coast through Japan and treat it like an unfortunate pit stop on his path to glory. He doesn't expect to be challenged by anyone until he comes across Smile. And once he fully is in Japan, his story really ends up being a series of humblings. In their first official match, Smile clearly has Kong on the ropes. It's clear to anyone watching that this is Smile's game to lose. But once Smile overhears Kong's coach yelling from the sidelines that if he doesn't win this game, he won't be able to come home, he loses on purpose. This is clear to everyone, including Kong himself. In one of our first moments where we really dive into Smile's character, he, at this point, we're hearing this context that there is a hero. And I feel like on your first watch, you might think, is he the hero? Is he giving mercy on his competitors? This is something that he is ultimately able to work on, but it leaves a lasting impression on Kong because he knows in his heart of hearts that Smile lost on purpose. Kong's relationship with his coach from China offers us, the audience, another example of how important it is to have a good role model in your life. He is often hard on Kong, but ultimately challenges him to consider his life outside of ping pong. He's a gentle reminder that while playing, we are going to put everything into the sport, but when the game ends, the match is over. Ping pong cannot consume your life, and that's what he is constantly trying to push Kong towards understanding throughout the series. After being ultimately humbled, Kong does find some peace in teaching and pushing the Japanese players within his new school. By pivoting his anger and distraughtness to lifting those up around him, he finds a core of peace and is all the better for it. The rematch between Peko and Kong was one of the most fun sequences in the show, and displays how the ping pong matches are really just a backdrop for the characters to have a battle of ideology. Kong's personality represents, that dedication that we often seen depicted within China, that winning in the sport means more than anything. It's your pride, it's your culture, it's for your family. And Kong wholly bears this responsibility on his shoulders. He is a character that I kind of wish we actually got a little bit more perspective into. We were really diving into his character in the first half of the series, but I feel like in the second half, we kind of lose him in the shuffle of our main cast. Between our main boys, Smile and Peko, and then our side characters like Sakuma, Kazuma, and Kong, it feels like we're getting a well-rounded point of view into all the different ways that your psyche can be affected as an athlete, especially a young one. The final 2 episodes are packed with the most emotional weight possible. Seeing Peiko fully take on his mantle as the hero as he slays the dragon Kazuma, all the while pushing Kazuma to play harder than he ever has before, was a particular highlight for me. Seeing Kazuma's facade drop and watching the two of them play with these huge smile on their faces was infectious, and I was grinning ear to ear on my couch just watching it. The music, the animation, the dialogue all had me leaning in and on the edge of my seat. I love how much of the show's story and meanings are told through visual metaphors that don't have any dialogue. As they're playing, we see Kazuma start to sprout wings and fly as long as he can alongside Peiko. This message that Peiko is the hero of this story and is truly saving the people around him is made so clear with these silly little animations in between our actual match. If I'm being completely honest, I don't love how this series closes. I'm infatuated with the bits of Smile and Peiko's match that we got in the last episode. However, we get so little of it. Especially for something that was so heavily built upon and implied to be the culmination of what the series has been building to, I desperately wanted to watch more of this match. The moment where Smile's character journey has fully come full circle is seeing him literally bleed on the court. He's sweating. He's putting everything into it. This is potentially the only time in the entire series that we see Smile going all out in a table tennis match. Peiko the hero has now officially lifted up Tsukimoto and delivered his smile and love for the game back that has been missing for so long. We then cut to a flash forward where we see these characters as they've set out into their adult lives. Peiko and Pong are now competing on the Olympic level. Kazuma made it far but ultimately fell out, and for some reason Smile is just a teacher. Listen, I can understand and respect that they're going for a more grounded reality, right? Ending with these choices, I think, is like a realistic choice. I think that they're trying to be true to what actually happens in the real world. You know, you can have all these kids that are competing on such a high level. Only a couple of them are really going to make it through, right? I also understand that Smile never had goals of playing on the grand stage, like we see Peiko saying as a small child. You know, that was never something that was particularly important to Smile, so I suppose it does make sense that we don't see him doing that. The frustrating part about this, of course, is because we know that Smile can. Everything we've seen from the series is that Smile should and definitely can stand on the grand stage and compete on the Olympic level. Not seeing him do that is not a betrayal on his character, but it might be a betrayal on my own personal expectation coming in. However, Smile going on to become a teacher of the game of ping pong is, I suppose, a good place for him to end. Is it particularly the most compelling spot we could have left off with Smile? Probably not. Is it the most realistic path for Smile in general? Maybe so. The series essentially kind of has a hard jump, and all of a sudden we're closing with a reflection with Kazuma and Smile, who I didn't really think were friends, walking on the beach, skipping stones, and reflecting on their time of being competitors. Our closing shot is Smile finding a paddle abandoned there on the beach and literally littering, by the way, and just tossing his paddle into the ocean. Another awkward and intense angle to really leave the show out on a visual that rings very true to how the show is constantly visually displaying itself. But then that's it. I mean, personally, I'm really left with a feeling of longing. I want more. I don't feel emotionally satisfied with the closing moments of the series. Listen, I could be splitting hairs here because I do feel like I got so many emotional checkpoints along the way, especially in the few episodes leading up to the finale. However, the last 5 minutes left me wanting so much more. I want to see Smile and Peiko play all the way through their match. You know what I mean? Let me see that. You know, we got plenty of it. We got some awesome sequences of those moments, but I want to see it all. And outside of that, our closing moment with older Smile tossing this ping pong paddle into the ocean, I don't know what I'm meant to take away from that. What is the closing message? What is the closing sentiment? Is there not really one? Is it just that, you know, this was our explorative dive into the psyche of athletes, and this is just a realistic take on how these journeys often end? Ultimately, I walk away from this series with a deep appreciation for the deep dive that we do get into the concept of competitiveness, right? And how competitive sports can create different mindsets and potential trappings for people to fall into. It highlights the kind of mental health that a young athlete will likely face and have to overcome at some point. It emphasizes the power of love and how infectious it can be, and it highlights the power of our peers to not only push each other, but lift each other up along the way. At the end of the day, Ping Pong the Animation is an emotionally rich and raw story that never fails to enrapture me anytime that I watch it. At the time of this recording, this is actually the third time that I've watched Ping Pong the Animation, and every time I watch it, I find myself more drawn into the themes, more so leaning into what's happening, and honestly enjoying it even more. As a former athlete, as someone who used to compete in ping pong tournaments, I can say with confidence that this series acts as a celebration of the game and offers many different lenses to view the sport of ping pong through. The music, the line work, the overall art direction, and emotional core that keeps the series moving all make Ping Pong the Animation a truly special anime that stands out a cut above anything else in the sports anime space. This is by far and away my favorite sports anime, and certainly one of my favorite anime overall. Hell, it may just be one of my favorite personal works of fiction, period. So there you have it, guys. My thoughts on Ping Pong the Animation are clearly confusing, complicated, and dense. And if I'm being honest, I feel like there's a lot that I didn't quite cover in this video. There's just so much to truly dive into and enjoy when it comes to the series. But this is where I turn the conversation over to you. What do you think about Ping Pong the Animation? What other kind of themes, topics, metaphors, and meanings have you found while watching this series yourself? Please let me know down in the comments. I appreciate any feedback and any conversation that we like to get going. And yeah, that's pretty much going to bring it to a close, guys. Just remember that blood does in fact taste like iron. And if you ever forget, my name is Darius, and I love you.